Well, it is officially official. The New York Football Giants and Wink Martindale have mutually agreed to part ways. So he is no longer the defensive coordinator for this football team. And to my understanding, this means he is going to be able to be a defensive coordinator somewhere else. The Giants wanted to force him to resign, and they pushed the buttons to do so. He never ended up doing it. They have mutually agreed to part ways. They didn't want to fire him because they didn't want him to coach somewhere else, and they wanted him to resign, so he couldn't do that. But sounds like he may be back in the NFL next year as a DC, and I'm keeping my eyes on him becoming the next defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up, though, I want to break down the report from the New York Post that Wink Martindale cussed out Brian Daboll and quit on the job and got on a plane and went to Florida. We'll dive into those quotes from the New York Post. But first, I got to make sure everybody watching today's show is subscribed to New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. We put out free, informative, entertaining, passion-driven content every single day. So if that's what you're looking for, subscribe to the channel and help us reach our goal of 42,000 subs. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule to rock and roll with us. It has been an eventful offseason for the New York Giants. They let go, or I guess mutually agreed to part ways with Wink Martindale. They fired their offensive line coach. They fired their special teams coordinators. And we haven't even talked about what they're going to do with Daniel Jones next season. Let's dive straight into the quotes, though, from Paul Schwartz, who did a great job for the New York Post breaking down this situation. The link to that article is in the description of today's show if you want to go give it a read. Listen up. He said this: Brian Daboll met with Martindale on Monday and told him there were staff changes coming. Daboll told Martindale he wanted him to stay, but that he was going to fire the Wilkins brothers. Martindale brought the Wilkins brothers with him to the Giants from the Ravens. They're supposedly really good friends, and that was Wink's right-hand man. On the sideline, it is Drew Wilkins helping Martindale with the personnel groupings and directing traffic for him. Drew Wilkins helps Martindale devise the defensive schemes. Martindale, angered by this news, cursed out Daboll, said his piece, got up, slammed the door, walked out of the building, and got on a Spirit flight to Florida. At least that's what the pictures looked like. Look, the Wilkins brothers, they did not earn a job on the New York Giants staff for the 2024 season. One of them is the outside linebacker coach. And if you look at the pressure rate for the outside linebackers for the Giants, they are in the bottom third of the National Football League. I know Kayvon Thibodeau had 12 sacks, but outside of those 12 sacks, he wasn't really an impact player on a down-to-down basis. Also, Wink, I don't care if he's your butt buddy. Because listen to this. Why was Daboll adamant about getting rid of Drew Wilkins and by association, Kevin Wilkins? Well, this is crazy. There was a feeling in the building that Martindale and Drew Wilkins were creating their own fiefdom within the coaching staff, at times bypassing Daboll and believing they had to answer only to each other and ultimately ownership. Daboll is all about collaboration, and this was not that. He notified those close to him he planned to resign. And now we are getting word that Wink and the Giants have mutually agreed to part ways. But the reason that I don't understand while the Wilkins brothers being fired was the last straw for Wink Martindale is this. Brian Daboll fired his offensive line coach, who he is good friends with, and Bobby Johnson, who he brought from Buffalo with him. And you know what Brian Daboll said? Bobby, I love you. I appreciate you for what you did. You're always going to be one of my best friends. But you simply did not do a good enough job to remain on this staff. And the same thing happened with the Wilkins brothers. But Wink, a baby, cried about it, slammed the door, cussed him out, and said, I don't want to be a part of this staff anymore. Also, this, a huge reason why there has been a divorce. A few weeks later, a Fox pregame report stated the Daboll-Martindale relationship was in a bad place. This was Jay Glazer. Daboll publicly dismissed that report and presented Martindale with the game ball after a 10-7 victory over the Patriots. Daboll privately confronted Martindale twice about the report, and no explanation was given. Daboll walked into a meeting of the defensive staff and referred to the report, announced if anyone had a problem with him, he should speak up. No one did so. No one spoke up. Wink Martindale, you are an absolute coward. You went and leaked to Jay Glazer that you had a problem with Brian Daboll. And when Brian Daboll confronted you privately, not once but twice, and then walked in the defensive coaching staff and confronted everybody again, your tail went between your legs and you shut up and looked like a scared puppy. There's a word that starts with a P that I really want to call Wink Martindale right now, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Before this report came out, we showed you guys this text message thread and said, we don't know if it's true, we don't know if it's false, but I'm starting to think it's true that now all of this is coming out. I'll read it to you one more time. Someone texted someone and said, you're a big G-Men fan, right? Got some insider news. Quote, don't expect Wink there much longer. Daboll is keeping Wink, but just fired Kev and Drew Wilkins, the outside linebacker coach. Wink is drafting his resignation call to the GM as we speak. When Daboll told Wink that's what he's doing, he stood up and yelled, fuck you to him. Said he has no idea how to run an offense, and they never gained a fucking yard against him in practice, told him to rot in hell, and stormed out. He also said he got the information from his good friend, who his best friend is Kevin Wilkins, so directly from the source. This is all just embarrassing for the New York Giants. The Giants used to be at the top of the top in the NFL when it comes to an organization and doing things the professional way. And now we have a feud between our head coach and our ex-DC playing out in the media like two girls at a high school prom who want to date the same. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. It absolutely is. Also this, reportedly the Giants have not started their defensive coordinator search. Don't know if that's true. Don't know if that's false. I think it'd be pretty damn dumb if you knew that Wink Martindale was not going to be here next year if you didn't get a head start more so, on finding that next guy. The Giants will have a new DC next year. It will not be Wink Martindale. He may be somewhere else. I actually just tweeted at Patty Traina, who covers the New York Giants. I asked her and said, so can he be a DC somewhere next year? She said, don't know yet. Details are still emerging, so we'll keep you up to date with that. That's why you subscribe to the channel. I also want to say this. This story clearly is coming from Brian Daboll. This is Brian Daboll's side of the story. We got Wink Martindale's side of the story from Glazer. We got Brian Daboll's side of the story from the New York Post. And so I just want to say, I can't wait to hear Wink's rebuttal to all of this. But let's put a bow on it. It's over. It's done with. Wink is gone. We're going to have a new DC. So the last time, who is more to blame for this situation? Because when details first came out, the news first came out, I ripped Brian Daboll. I said it was embarrassing that he couldn't get along with someone. There was reports that he didn't get along with other people on the staff. But now I think Wink Martindale's the real a-hole here. So who do you blame? Type BD for Brian Daboll or WM for Wink Martindale. Coming up next, I'm going to go through my top 3 guys that I want to see as the next D coordinator for this football team to replace Martindale. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Factor. Go to factormeals.com/GiantsChat50. Use that promo code GiantsChat50 and you're going to get 50% off. All that information will be clickable down in the comments and description of today's show. Get started on your resolution with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolution. Pick your pre-made meals. They're prepped and cooked to perfection. Heat them up, eat them, and I promise you, you will enjoy them. They've got options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Check them out, factormeals.com/GiantsChat50, promo code GiantsChat50. How about we just do this? How about we hire someone better? How about we just hire someone better than Wink Martindale? You might say, whoa, 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 no way we can do that. Well, I think you can. I think there's a lot of guys out there that are better. Maybe ones that don't try to divide your locker room in half and try to burn the building down from the inside. Look at the numbers for the Giants on the defensive side of the ball through 2 years under Wink Martindale calling plays. Year 1, they allowed the 17th most points per game. Year 1, allowed the 25th most yards allowed. They allowed the 27th most rushing yards. They did have the number 1 blitz rate. They had the 6th pressure rate, 13th most sacks, and the 25th most turnovers. That's year 1. What about year 2? 26 most points allowed, 27th in yards allowed, 29th in rushing yards allowed, second in blitz rate, 21st in pressure rate, 28th in sacks. They did force a lot of turnovers. They were tied for first, 31 most turnovers this year. You could do better. Go do better. And the guy that should be the next defensive coordinator, in my opinion, is Mike Zimmer, the former head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. He is my number one Wink Martindale replacement. Why? Because he checks a lot of the boxes that I want in my next DC. A guy that's been a head coach before, and a guy that's been a coach of a top defense in this league. And in 2017, the Minnesota Vikings were one of the best defenses of all time. And that's not a joke. They were number one in points per game allowed, 15.8. They allowed just 83.6 rushing yards. Second, they allowed the second least amount of passing yards, 192. They allowed just 4.6 yards per play, and their third down percentage was 25.2. I think he is an aggressive DC, and that's what I want. I want Brian Daboll to focus on the offense, and I want him to throw the keys to an experienced defensive coordinator and say, you handle that side of the ball, I'll fix this train wreck on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't think there's anyone in this league that is more qualified and a better option than a guy like Mike Zimmer. Another reason I want Zimmer to be the guy is because I need Andre Patterson on this staff. Mike Zimmer, well, Andre Patterson, if you don't know, is the defensive line coach for the New York Giants, and he is regarded as one of the best D-line coaches in the National Football League. Players love him. And Zimmer and Patterson worked together in Minnesota from 2014 to 2022. Patterson was the co-DC for 2 seasons under Zimmer and the associate head coach for a year, so they have a really strong working relationship. And if Zimmer's the guy, I believe he'll hold on to Andre Patterson, and I would just absolutely love that. Option number 2, and I don't know how much of a fan that I am of Leslie Frazier, but I think Leslie is going to be at the top of the list when it comes to Brian Daboll and guys that he wants to hire to be the next DC. Why Leslie Frazier? Well, he was the Bills' defensive coordinator when Brian Daboll was the Bills' offensive coordinator. So they've worked before, they've won before, they know each other, and they know what it's like to be in the same building. He also interviewed to be the New York Giants head coach when Joe Shane took over as the general manager. They just opted to go and hire Brian Daboll. He also visited a New York Giants practice during the spring of 2023, and he has been a head coach before. And that's something that I am valuing in my next defensive coordinator hire. The last person that I would be interested in being the next DC for our New York Football Giants is none other than number 58, captain of the defense that beat Tom Brady, Antonio Pierce. And there's reports coming out from Sports Illustrated that the Giants are interested in AP as their next DC. Hondo Carpenter, who works for Sports Illustrated, covers the Raiders for them, was told by a member of the New York Giant organization moments ago if Antonio Pierce is not hired as the head coach of the Raiders, he would be a top target for our DC job. He is in the running to be the next head coach for the Raiders. He was the interim, did a good job, and I think he deserves that job. But if he doesn't, I'm calling him up and I'm seeing if he wants to be the next DC of Big Blue. Once a Giant, always a Giant. And I would love to see him get an opportunity to do it. The thing that does concern me a little bit is he's never been a play caller in the National Football League on the defensive side of the ball. And I kind of want a more experienced guy there. But if I know there's someone out there that could rally the troops, have people believe in him, and play for the man next to you and play for the guy calling the plays, it's Antonio Pierce. Your job, though, now is to answer this question for me. Because I can give you all my defensive coordinator candidates I want. But I want to hear from you guys. I read the comment section, and I learn a lot from you guys, some of the smartest people I know. So pick a DC. Who do you want to be the next Wink Martindale replacement? Is it Mike Zimmer? Is it Leslie Frazier? Is it Antonio Pierce? Type the initials of the guy you want to see calling the plays on the defensive side of the ball next year. Oh, man, what a crazy offseason it's already been. I think it's been 3 days. We're going to continue to break it down on this channel. So subscribe, turn the notifications on. If you made it this far in the video, hit that thumbs up icon. We'd greatly appreciate it.